I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Heavenly Delusion Season 1, Episode 5. Last episode, Tokyo saw what babies look like. Shiro told Mimihime that he wants to lock her in his room. And the creepy fish thing's gone now.
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly. I think we also got Mina, some sort of robot thing with maybe a big belly that has
rings
control
around a pupil have any meaning or connection?
Right.
Does the back of Maru's jacket mean anything? Maybe, probably.
After last episode, something that kind of popped into my head that made me feel a little bit silly for not thinking too much about at the time is the fact that, if I am correct, in the 5 years ago with Kiriko and Haruki,
in episode
3, we are told that 10 years ago from that was the calamity.
Correct.
Maru is 15 years old. He would have been born at the time that this happened. This calamity happened.
Ah.
And that is what I feel like I need to focus on. Especially when we have the idea that Tokyo seems to be one of the older kids with, like, amongst this kid group. Like, definitely, you know, the older class. Which means that all of those kids have been in here basically since the calamity. Was he originally born in there? I'm thinking sci-fi twins. Like, they share the same genetic something. Like, so sci-fi twins, you know, because we know that the babies did not look how actual babies look. You know? Like,
yeah, interesting.
My mind is, like, spinning already.
Does it
is that why he has a weird
to
ability?
The Maru touch, yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Sweet. A market.
Back in the city.
Whoa, cool jacket.
Safe water. The movies.
Nice. Come on. Damn it.
Darn it. That's like them traveling together.
This is such a cool shot.
You trying to beat our high score? Did he break it?
Asshole. Oh!
He attacked him and then broke the machine.
I love wasn't the one hit enough? Oh! Holy shit.
He's taking it outside.
Damn. I wonder if Maru is just a great fighter or he's like a little bit of enhanced strength like the kids elsewhere. God
Fuck
damn.
yeah! Right on time. He's like, no question asked. Good friend! You wouldn't have fought like that.
True. Oh.
Oh my god, Ben, it's gonna grow back.
If it grows
It's
back,
gonna grow
I'm going
back.
to lose my fucking mind. I love snow. Okay. God,
Look who he
looks
looks
a
like.
lot like Tokyo.
7歳の頃、そこが解散したのかな。俺を含む何人かは、多分身寄りが別の集団に入れられて、
Separate groups just to survive. We went with the killer.
Jesus Christ.
That's why he's used to fighting.
Already has the gun? Can it be taught?
今度はこの人の言うこと聞いてればいいのかなって。
特別惚れっぽいわけでもないんだね。
どういう意味だよ。イクラさんは俺を物でも見るような冷たい目で見てて、人間扱いしてなかった。
Maybe she knew about you and that's why.
せめて町の場所なり地名なり思い出せないの？
でもあるばかりの人生だったからな。
悟るな。特に目新しい情報はなしか。
話してもこれ以上出ないよ。
いいや。何回も話してると何か思い出すものだし、何
True.
かに気づくんだ。何かの本で読んだ。
あ、本といえば隣の部屋見た。
役に立ちそうな本は知識は共有するより独占した方が
Damn.
町の金につながる。あ、それこの町で作ってる新聞間に読んでたら？
一緒に行かないの？
君は顔が割れてるだろう。昨日の連中に見つかったら面倒なことになる。
大丈夫。腫れてるけど割れてはいない。
坊やいいかい。顔が割れてるってのは怪我のことじゃなく顔が知られちゃってるってこと。
Will get us busted.
ミクラさんから方法を教わったってこと。ミクラさんも丸タッチできたの？
いや、今のところ俺だけだって。
She said only I could do it.
俺が天国に行かないといけないとか。
And that's why.
人食い殺せますって書いてあったけど。
あれはただの宣伝も。
That's why she took Maru to Kiruko. Kiruko could be recognized.
Ministry of Reconstruction.
復興省。まだそんな噂があるのか。
災害前の文明を使えるようにするため技術と知識のある人間をさらっている集団がいる。
復興省は年寄りの妄想だって姉ちゃんが言ってた。
そういう噂もある。
最近闇市で人が行方不明になるってのまさか。
もう電動カートを直したりする技術があるからな。もし知らねえやつが訪ねてきたらア
So
ホのふりしろよ。
アホのふりってどうするんだ？
お、うまいぞ。
まだ何もしてないわ。
Ah.
岩田さんがもう一回差しでやりたいっつってんだ。
あんた昨日来てなかったからそんなこと言えるんだ。こっちは8人いたのに秒で全滅だ。
One of them got kicked by Kiruko.
He's like an explosive.
うちの丸は強いだろ。うちの丸。なんで僕が得意になってんだ。丸は警護対象の他人だ。目的を果たしたら。
It's like protecting your emotions before they happen. Oh no.
We have that conversation with ourselves right when
丸？
that connection might be tested. It's probably nothing. He probably read something in the newspaper.
何でかい声出してんだよ。隠れてるんだろ俺。
Oh my god.
Wow.
隣の部屋で何やって。
ちょっとその役に立つ本がないかなと思って。ああ、ちょっと見なくていいから。
Oh my gosh.
それでエロ本使ってたのか。
見てただけ。いや見てもねえし。なんか変だぞ。
こんなにパニクるとは思わなかった。
Do you think it's like a form of trauma as well? You know?
こと言ったってタイミングが悪ければたまたまいない時が。
Being all alone again. That thought.
ごめん。自分の生い立ちを話してて思ったよ。だいぶ辛い思いをして生きてきたんだろうね。
ちょっとなんか硬いもんだけど。
も 新聞に書いてあったんだけど、災害前って人間が楽するためにロボットを作って、そのロボットに監視される心配してビビってたらしいよ。
That makes
Mina?
sense.
ところが実際は過ぎた人間同士が互いに監視し
Oh.
Monitoring each other.
Oh.
Own rules onto each other.
双方解説だな。
War collapse theory.
いかにも偶話的すぎる。
もう限らないって話だよ。それに災害前が天国なら過去ってことだよ。無理だろ。
でも大人はみんな帰りたがってる。もしどこかで前の文明が復旧しているとしたら。
Restored is a interesting word. Oh my god.
Oh, and it knows Tokyo's name. Oh, the footprint.
The footprint. Help, Mina. Help, baby.
これは
Kill the scientist, Mina.
足跡。なぜこんなところに
Knock him
足
out.
跡が
Whoa.
これは何を？
太郎が目を覚ますと思って。
Aw.
あっちは？
太郎が元気だった時持ち上げた石だそうです。
Whoa.
持ち上げただけじゃない。どこからここまで放
He had super strength.
Whoa.
力が強いからね。天永17年10月16日23時34分。
The last thing he said to Tokyo.
皆さんおはようございます。着替えを済ませたら食堂へ行かず広場に集ま
They're
って
gonna announce it.
昨夜タラオくんが亡くなりました。
To be told that by like a voice like that.
Wow.
The body. What do they do with it?
Probably burn it.
アスラも同じ病気だったの。
アスラはそうかもしれない。皆さん、タラオくんの遺体は火葬してよろしいの？
What's on her chest?
必要なサンプルはすでに採したので。
悲しい。悲しいです。2人目の死者を出してしまいました。
アスラの自殺は誰にも
Astra's suicide.
That is
精神が耐えかねるような体に
Could not bear its own mind.
が殺したようなものです。
What?
過酷な思いをさせてしまいました。したこと自体が我々の
What?
罪なのです。
they
ア
are
スラの
like
隣にタラオくんのお墓を。
they're creating. They have to be picking and choosing
この病気は
attributes.
特有のものでしょうか。それとも。
免疫を備えて作られたが
Built
ゆえ
with
に発症
immunity,
したも
built
の
with
は
immunity to
全ての子
everything.
供たちに発病の可能性があります。
それは困ります。日だけは変更できないんです。
Day of
それまで
Fate.
に病気の正体と治療法を解明してください。
僕もなのか。
水、安全度。
I'm scared of Maru getting sick.
この数字は何が根拠なんだろう。水、安全度 100%。100？ まさに天国じゃない？
主観的だな。まあそこへ寄るのはやぶさかじゃないが。あ、今足音がした。この建物に入ってきてるな。迷わずこの部屋に来た。一人しかいないっぽいし、いざとなれば勝てるでしょ。
強い一人だったらどうすんだよ。
いるんだろ？船で一緒だったものだ。開けてくれ。
Oh.
つけさせてもらった。担当直入に言う。俺をガードしてもらえないか。
まあ方向が同じなら考えるけど。
そう遠くない。不滅教団だ。
Immortal
滅
Order.
教団？
何それ。
そう呼ばれてただけ
Like
で
a cult.
本当の名前は違うのかもしれないが、永遠に生かし続ける医者がいるとかで。
医者ってのはこいつか。
いや、
場所はともクソもないだろう。信用してもらえなきゃ引き受けられないよ。
俺とこの荷物を守ってく
And
れ。
the contents of this
大
bag.
災害の後現れた船を襲ってきたような死なない異形、そいつの一部を移植すると強くて死なない人間になれる
Wait, wait,
と
wait,
いう
wait.
話は知ってるか？
てる荷物はまさか。
絶対取るなよ。
草ってぐちゃぐちゃになってない？
あら、船に乗る前はこんな風じゃなかったのに。
Oh!
なよ。
そんな、やっとの思い出手に入れたのに。
その不死身軍団とやらの場所はどこだよ。
不滅教団じゃなかったっけ？
人食いの肉はそれを元手にまた探しゃいいじゃん。
100% 水を汲んだら不滅教
This
団。
is getting so fucked.
さしちゃって。
地図に妙な連中って書き
Strange
込んであるんだよな。
The cutting is so deliberate.
何ですか、想像し
死体を焼き終えたんですが。
What?
ことは任せて。
But?
とにかくご覧になってください。一体何なんですか。
Yeah! Ah!
Like an egg?
I don't know.
Was that what was inside of him making him sick? Why
Like
did
a
Mikura
tumor?
have the same illness? And Mikura knew what Maru was.
Okay, that was Heavenly Delusion, Season 1, Episode 5. I took 4 notes, 4 pages of notes.
I took 3 pages.
That was a wild episode, man.
It was. There's
Oh.
a lot that I'd want to talk about, for sure.
Starting off, Maru, I love getting a bit of his backstory, you know, after we got Kiruko's.
Definitely.
It's a point that I want to make, that we don't know anything before the age of 3. Where he was born, the circumstances of his birth. But what we did get was very telling, especially from Mikura. I think Mikura as a character has a lot of question marks for me.
Yeah.
In terms of not only where we got the gun from, but also seemingly the ability to tell right off the bat that Maru wasn't normal.
Mikura is the one that has the location in mind, knows of Maru's power and how to use it, gives Maru the mission to, you know, gives this to someone who has the same face as me. Mikura has what looks like the same illness as Taro.
Yeah.
And there's a line of never treated me as human.
Yeah. And I was the only person that was able to learn how to use this,
Mhm.
right? Interesting. Do you think that there is any, like, actual connection between Mikura and Taro? Like,
At
in
the
terms
moment,
of, like, I don't know.
like same DNA
Yeah.
and genetics within what we're imagining is some sort of reusing of certain aspects and attributes of people in order to create a person.
Yeah.
I think before really speculating about that, I would absolutely love to rewatch the scene where the director is talking about Asura.
Asura.
Because we are given some information about what these people might be doing here. Kind of. Or at least more ground to stand on to start speculating and theorizing.
It was originally brought up through Tokyo bringing it up, and Kona having such a strong reaction to it, right?
It was obviously someone that Kona was very close to, which what we hear about the personality of Asura, I think fits with someone that would be friends with someone who seems like that go-to therapeutic presence as Kona kind of has. He seems to be the one that is the comfort to everyone else.
Kona was the one who found her as well. But I got the scene pulled up. Do you want to watch it?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I love this song. Asking permission. What the fuck's on her chest? No one could have predicted Asura's suicide, That's not true. Asura was born into a body that could not bear its own mind.
And that is their responsibility and fault. Too many cruel ideas were forced upon her.
Asura's birth itself was a sin.
Like, it takes me back to that scene where we have them observing the children and being like, how do they know about these ideas? We didn't teach them that.
Yeah.
And it makes you think that, like, is this something that is implemented within those babies that we saw? Or is this something in terms of curriculum? Like, some ideas and concepts that they are teaching the children and then realizing, like, ooh, maybe don't teach them that, because then it will lead them to start thinking about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. When it says 12 on Asura's gravestone, are you interpreting that as age?
Yes. I'm going to interpret that as 10... No. 12 years after the calamity, maybe. Like, after the disaster. So it could be age 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'll go with, is age 12.
I wanted to keep watching to the point of the director saying, like, what her goals are going forward, if that's okay. If an illness developed within a body built with immunity to everything, I'm not trying to directly, like, holy shit, it's a 1-for-1 in terms of living forever with the doctor that we had the conversation with and mixing with, but it's very clearly on the table in terms of correlating, right?
I mean, we have the idea with Doc and then Kiriko and Haruki putting the mind of someone into the body of someone else, but here we have it creating a body that is built with certain things by maybe taking pieces of other things, and then we get the immortal order and the idea of mixing Maneater with a person.
I think that, like, it could be two very different things achieved by the same direction of
line of thinking or person.
Maybe. Possible that all the children could fall ill. The Day of Fate is the only thing that can't be changed. Until then, figure out what it is and how to cure it. The fuck? The Day of Fate. We get...
Oh, it's the name of this episode.
Yeah.
I didn't even recognize that.
What is your interpretation of the Day of Fate? Is it something that's prophesized? Is it something that Mina has said will occur? Are we watching something out of order? Is, like, the Day of Fate...
Ooh.
Like...
We have speculated about, are we not going to see an actual converging of the two storylines until the very end? And what if they are on completely different timelines?
I don't know.
In terms of when we're being shown them. I mean, it could be. I like the idea that Mina is the one that gave it. I really like the idea that there was a disaster that uprooted society, created this idea where... In this episode, we get this idea of, like, robots and people starting to, like, tinker with that, but then being kind of nervous about that as well. I like the idea of, like, there being another disaster that is yet to come, another judgment of the world after the first one, and then the people that are left here after the first are the ones that are going to have to fight this Day of Fate. And are we trying to create the ultimate, like, little mini soldiers for whatever this Day of Fate is? Like, is this Day of Fate, like, are we putting these kids up there, like, they will be the deciders of whether humanity lives on in this world or not? Like, is it, like, full-on cataclysmic meteor hitting the planet, whichever creatures are able to, like, survive that meteor and evolve from it are the ones that will, like, you know, continue on.
I think the implication of trying to find a reason and cure for whatever's happening inherently implies that the Day of Fate would not involve their death, right? It would involve them continuing to live, maybe even without the director's involvement.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I'm like, okay, are these kids, would they be capable, if Mikura was in the same room with them, would they also be able, would Mikura be able to teach them about, you know, their way of using, like, the Maru touch and defeating Hirugo?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We got so many different like organizations talked about this episode, whether it was like the Ministry of Reconstruction within the flashback of Robin and talking about like the rumor of it, and it's been such a rumor for so long. We are given the Immortal Order. It's so interesting how hope is intertwined with I don't know, man. Like the idea of rebuilding or building differently, like hope within the sense of rumors of organizations, whether they're real or not, is such an interesting topic to touch on, because the idea of bringing back civilization to the way that it was is one that seems very feasible and like it would exist within this world, so much so that we saw the tomato heaven of them realizing that going within that direction might not be what's best for them, and them going into a more primitive, like live off the earth style. And then you have the complete opposite side of it, where it's not returning to life as normal, but finding a way to live forever, finding a way to live in a way that you have no restrictions in terms of getting sick, diseases.
Embracing a lack of control over life and then trying to control life. I think there's a line in this episode about how the older generations, the older people, are the ones that they're always talking about like how things were. And obviously for our two main characters, they were both children or not even born yet when the disaster happened. So they never really had what it was like back then. And I think what we've seen is that everyone has a different definition of what heaven would look like to them. We have that tomato heaven, those people that were like, this is peace on earth. We have a nice community. We have some marijuana. Like, we have like a nice garden, with tons of food. And this is heaven to us. But then we have this man that was on this boat with us that's like, I need to get to that idea of heaven to me, of being able to mix Maneater with myself in order to be immortal. I need to go to this location. It's like everyone is clinging to their own idea of whatever is hope to them. What would make me feel like life can go on?
Yeah.
They're clinging to something.
We, in a funny way, we talked about like time traveling this episode and like going back in time. And I don't necessarily...
It'd be impossible, Maru said.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that, like, that's something that would happen within that way. But I do think it's fairly interesting to talk about the idea of how much knowledge Mikura had based off of being told or learning things herself, or out of, like, precognition, or, like being able to think about things that haven't happened. I mean... What were the rules and the mission that was given to Maru by Mikura?
It was to take this, like, a syringe or something to a person that has a face like yours and inject them with it, and then, like, that it'll help a lot of people.
Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, we're seeing Tokyo seemingly coming down with something that would potentially be cured by something injected by a syringe. Like,
interesting.
You know what I mean?
Like, what is this illness? Obviously, when Taru dies, we get left with some sort of tumor rock thing that is left there on the cremation bed.
Table, yeah.
Don't have any answers for that at the moment, obviously. Is that something that was making him sick?
Well, okay. Can it only be in one person at once? Like,
right, is it some sort of parasite infection? Is there one of the things that they're using in order to create people, is that thing actually infected, and whichever people they've put it in, is this the inevitable
No,
fate?
what I'm saying is, like, did Taru's sickness coincide with Mikura's death? And then did Taru's death coincide with Tokyo's sickness beginning?
Oh, like, is it past and it can only be in one at a time? Interesting. That's a good thought. I have another fun thought. Robin and Haruki, back in, like, episode 3, we have this, like, idolization connection between these two characters. Robin is one of the people that disappeared. In this episode, we get the idea that, like, oh, like, for the people that disappeared, were their bodies actually used for experiments and stuff?
Or their skills
and
used.
Then Taro, and then Tokyo, which is the Maru lookalike, but, you know, I don't know. I just think that's fun to think about. Like, what if he, like, Robin's DNA was used in that little boy or something?
Yeah. Like, definitely the idea of the Ministry of Reconstruction within, like, it could appear however it wants to appear to the people who aren't taken away, because they're the people who are taken away, even if it seems to be because they're chosen and it's for a good purpose, only the people who were taken away know what happens to them. You know, it could be nothing but good ideals and ideas of what it was to begin with.
Yeah. I think the show makes me feel stupid.
Why?
I don't know, because I just said something, and then now I'm like, Anna, that's stupid.
Yeah?
Yeah. But I like shows that make me feel stupid. I like shows that make me want to have my mind spinning a mile a minute, and then I'm spitting out things that might end up being, like, gold, and then the next minute I'm spinning out, like, shit.
Interesting. I think that I want to know what your thought of the reason of bringing up what Taru was previously capable of doing would be.
Of the super strength?
Yeah.
My reasoning for thinking he had
Yeah,
super
like,
strength?
do you think that there was any narrative, like, I thought that it might be an indication at first, like, okay, we know where his normal was. If there was a way that he could improve, we could see, or never improve. Like, let's say he got better, and then he tries to throw the rock and it doesn't go anywhere, or he can't even pick it up. And then something happened within this sickness that has taken away an ability from him. No, it was shown of what he could do, the idea of how weak he is now, and then death. Do you think that that him having like an ability that seemed more superhuman was any of the reason that he got sick to begin with?
No.
Okay.
Because we have other characters like Taka who have their own, like, superhuman abilities, it seems like, or their own immortality.
And they haven't gotten sick yet?
And if anything, I actually didn't come out of this episode thinking that Tokyo was actually sick at all. If anything, I think it's the idea of, like, not being introduced to certain things.
Yeah.
And the idea of, like, this was the first time Tokyo was, like, really connected in terms of grief.
I think that that's very fair. I think that, like, okay, we just saw Tokyo throwing up, right? And then asking themselves if they were sick, even though we were previously told that it's not contagious like that. Like, it definitely, like, my initial interpretation of it was definitely, okay, this is like a feeling of disgust and despair, and I don't know what to do with all of these emotions, like anxieties. And the only reason I, like, potentially tried to connect it with Mikura and it being like a sickness passed on was because of seeing the thing at the end. It was just a rumor.
The only
theory
instance that they have of sickness is what happened to Taro.
Yeah.
So Tokyo doesn't even know, from what we can understand from what the scientists were talking about, they've probably never even had the common cold. Like, sickness is something that is they were just introduced to, and what they were shown was it killed this person.
Yeah.
And it is any symptom that is irregular to their normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to operate that Tokyo, at least, isn't going to get the same.
Okay.
But then again, why do we have an injection? And why does Maru have to get to a place and inject a person with a similar face to him? And I'm just going to go, maybe injection for an illness is too much the first answer.
Yeah.
And I should be looking behind it, you know, and it being something like unlocking something within you that you need to unlock in order to defeat man-eaters.
Okay. I wanted to talk about this line of dialogue from Maru. It was about him reading the newspaper. Before the Great Disaster, humans made robots to make life easier. But they started to get nervous that the robots were monitoring them. Kiriko laughs. But the truth is, humans had too much spare time and ended up monitoring each other. Bars. They started to push their own rules onto each other and slaughtered one another until everything perished. That's the war collapse theory. Sounds made up to me. Too much like an old fable. The story just means that life before wasn't just like heaven. I think that that's super fascinating. And then the interpretation of like, oh, that sounds like a fable to me, when we see firsthand that at least like the idea of building robots and using them to spy on each other and like thinking that the robots are spying on them connected with Mina's legitimate ability to not only watch everything but interact with it within intelligent ways to further a potential, plan. I think that that's super fascinating. The parallels between both of the stories get more complex and more further from each other but closer to each other every episode, I feel.
This would almost lead you to think that the timelines are different for plot A and plot B. It would make you think that this was the before.
Well, that or the after, or one was separated after the disaster started and this is just the evolution of collapse, and the other kept what the standard was and went
like kept
the other
living
way.
Amongst like robots and
What life was like at that point.
Yeah.
What do you think the shoe print acknowledgement's going to lead to?
I wrote down just really quick, like, interesting that the shoe print was at first acknowledged by the scientist guy, and then after that, it wasn't something that was of immediate concern, seemingly, which I find very interesting that was not so immite concern level. He checked a shoe.
Do you think it's like an over trusting of Mina? Like the idea of asking for permission for cremation this episode, it could have definitely just been Mina needed to take blood samples, are you done? Or it's like, oh, if a shoe print's here, that's crazy and wild to me, but that's not in my pay grade. I'm sure Mina had a reason for it.
Right. I mean, answering this question could imply a lot about the specific personality of that specific scientist and their own feelings about their job, about their trust in Mina. You're right. Like, okay, we would have been alerted to however the shoe was created. So obviously whatever it wasn't a threat or something bad. He looks at the shoes, like the girl that's dancing, shoes are off, and he checks those. They all have the same shoes on, basically, so I imagine that the footprint of all of them would be the same. The sole of each shoe is the same. So he'd be able to recognize that it was one of the kids' shoe prints.
Yeah.
But he does nothing with that. And I just feel like maybe that's because he's okay with Deb figuring some things out.
Yeah.
Maybe he's kind of also just observing and seeing how things play out. And maybe he's not mad about the fact that things could get dismantled somehow. That's just me, like, trying to get into his personality of why this wouldn't be, like, such a sound the alarms. Let's bring the director in here.
Yeah.
Show the director the footprint.
Mm-hmm. What the fuck is on Mina's chest that's, like, an abstract circle that's, like animated and reverberating and going outside of its own circle? Is it, like, a sense of a soul, a mind, a being?
I guess, just in a very pretty way to draw it.
Fascinating, though, because we didn't see it before.
It definitely isn't that same circular, repetitive pattern that we've seen. It's much prettier.
One of the... Okay, here's a question. Why do you think the Hyrugo disintegrated within the jar? And do you believe the idea that was being passed on that if you surgically, like, implant or conjoin like a piece of the Hyrugo to a body, it would make it last forever and, stay away from illness?
I don't know if it would actually give immortality. If anything, I think it would be closer to what we see within these kids. Like, the suicide worked. So it's not that these bodies of these kids are immortal. They are immune to disease and maybe the natural threats to humanity, which is like, oh, I fell from a certain height, or I don't get a flu.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go maybe not actually immortal. Maybe they're just using that word in order to, like, really drive the masses here, and it's more of like a cult-like thing, like, oh yeah, we could have immortality, so you better follow us, and it's more like if you're a higher rank, then you have it, and it's more facade, if you will.
If
and
you transplant part of a monster onto a human, they become extremely powerful and have immortal life. Have you heard that? I think, like, yeah, immortal life doesn't necessarily imply immortality and, like, physical consequence, right? It would mean that, unless something happened to you, you would be able to live forever.
It is interesting that the only time we see this illness obviously causes Tara's death, but we've seen, like, I will say it and say it again, Taka should have died from that fall.
Yeah.
Asura took her own life. Is there something there of, like, what, like, prerequisite rules of what would actually kill them? Which, I don't know, maybe. But in terms of your first initial question of what did I think about the disintegration of the piece of the man-eater, it does lead me to believe, like, it leaves me to question why, yes, especially because in that same conversation, Kiriko goes on to give the man money to buy another man-eater part.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is there just a certain special way you're supposed to preserve these things and he just didn't do it properly?
Or was this man-eater different? We saw that it was drawn by Kona.
Is this man-eater different? Is the fact that this man-eater was fought by... He said he got on the ship with it, so it's not a part of the fish.
Maybe it's the idea that it's, like... Oh.
I was gonna go maybe since the fish was killed by... Marutouch, that's why it didn't work. But I'm pretty sure he said he, like, got on the ship with it.
I love, like, when holding up the picture of the doctor on the backside, you can see Robin.
Mm-hmm. Before I got on the ship. Okay, yeah. So he definitely got... It wasn't from the fish man-eater.
Interesting. I wonder if it was, like, because of being in the vicinity of the Marutouch or just having another man-eater be defeated and killed near it.
Is it a proximity, or is it that this guy just didn't know how to properly preserve it?
Is there only a certain amount of time that, you know, like anything, things could exist before spoiling?
Right.
Interesting.
Okay.
That was a crazy episode.
It was a crazy episode.
I hope to learn more about Asura next episode.
Yeah, you want to learn more about Asura?
I think that, like, just the idea of creating Asura is an interesting concept that has more answers that could come out of it, and especially from Kona's end.
Ooh, from Kona's end, I like that. We probably get a different point of view of what was going on in Asura's mind.
Yeah,
these
like
concepts
the demons
that we put into this mind that it just couldn't be the body couldn't handle it.
All right, that's all I have you.
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.